Hi, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today we have a really great guest on for you. His name is the Squatting Slav from Squatting Slav TV. Perhaps you've seen his channel before, so if you have, you know what you're in store for. But if you haven't, go ahead and check out some of his videos. I really enjoy the way that he is not afraid to confront people at those protests, and how he is not afraid to call out certain groups and certain people. And it's always nice to hear someone who is able to really capture the point very quickly, succinctly, in a humorous and clever way. So I hope that you enjoy his style. I know I certainly do. So it's also really nice that he is able to offer a perspective on both Eastern European culture and, of course, Western culture. And I think that that is a really valuable perspective, because you're able to get both sides of the argument that way. So I think for that reason, he is a great guest to have on. And of course, it's really great to see young people fighting the culture war and doing their part. So I hope you enjoy. We tackle a lot of different topics in this, so stay tuned. And if you like the content, of course, like, subscribe, share with your friends, and don't forget to leave a comment for any further suggestions or what parts you liked. So I'm going to call him up on Skype and we're going to get the show started. Enjoy. So I kind of like just wrote a bit of notes about some things are social and some things are political, so we can chat a little bit about those things. The number one thing I really want to talk about is kind of like these fake hero, fake champions of free speech and, right wing, left wing crap. And I really love how you're calling out Tommy Robinson and calling out Ben Shapiro and Milo and all the rest of it. So for those who haven't seen your videos, tell the viewers why they're full of it, for lack of a better word.
It depends on who we're speaking about
Well,
specifically, but
let's
in the
go down the
case,
line. Start with whoever you want.
okay, let's start with Tommy Robinson
Oh,
because he's sort of been um, in the media spotlight in the last few months,
mm-hmm,
and especially in the last few weeks.
mm-hmm,
When a member of his team released this hit piece against one of my colleagues in the UK there, Mark Collette.
okay.
So Tommy Robinson, as I've been saying, as many others have been saying,
Mm-hmm,
um, is essentially controlled opposition. Behind Tommy, you have this enormous Zionist lobby.
mm-hmm,
You have Zionist tech millionaires such as Robert Shillman
mm-hmm,
behind him. You have the Gatestone Institute behind him. You have the Middle Eastern Forum, and these are all Zionist organizations which are kicking a lot of money Tommy's way,
mm-hmm,
and which are essentially monopolizing and fabricating all of these scandals that are happening around him. Because every time that something happens to Tommy Robinson, well, instantly you have people like Rebel Media starting
mm-hmm,
up these donation campaigns.
mm-hmm,
Tommy Robinson is constantly has his hands out asking people for donations, and it just never stops.
mm-hmm,
There's no solution is ever reached, and it just essentially keeps going in a circle.
mm-hmm,
And the people behind Tommy Robinson, the Zionists, they're essentially pushing the Israeli agenda
mm-hmm.
onto, and they're using British nationalism and patriotism as their scapegoat for it. So they're rousing up these anti-jihad and anti-Muslim sentiments
Oy vey.
while pushing the Israeli agenda, and they're essentially lobbying for these wars in the Middle East,
Mm-hmm,
and saying that Islam is entirely to blame for these conflicts,
mm-hmm.
when in fact we're all well aware by now that the wars in the Middle East benefit Israel over anyone else.
Yeah. And the worst part of it is that they're actually using real victims, like the girls who were gang raped or groomed by these, um, you know, okay, they maybe they were Muslim, and that is true, that what happened to them, but he's really capitalizing on their victimhood for his own benefit, and I think that is really disgusting because these girls were abused, and somehow he's making, himself famous and rich, which is just the worst part out of it. Okay, let's talk a little bit about, you're 100% right. Let's talk a little bit about Ben Shapiro, another chicken hawk warmonger. What about him?
Essentially same thing with Ben Shapiro. He just operates across the pond here in the United States, and he's been to Canada as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same thing essentially with Ben.
Mm-hmm.
He's seen as the star of the conservative pundit movement, but he's a staunch Zionist, and he puts his loyalty is to Israel first and to America second.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked about this in the past in one of my videos. Numerous other people have done it as well,
Yeah.
and you really see it. We really saw it just a few months back with the situation in Iran that was unfolding. The war that was this close to starting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Ben Shapiro was one of the few people who was egging on that war. When most conservatives and most people on the right were saying, "Hey, listen, we don't need another useless war in the Middle East. We've already lost billions of dollars and millions of lives. We don't need another useless conflict." And Ben Shapiro is one of the few war hawks and neocons who was actively pushing for this war, just as he was with the Syrian conflict 1 year ago. So, is it really in the best interest for the American people to go into another war in the Middle East? Or once again, is it more beneficial for Israel, which, is obviously one of the biggest enemies of Iran?
Absolutely. And I guess another Zionist would be Milo, because he even calls himself that quite proudly. All of these people right now seem to have this thing in common where they say that they hate identity politics, but as soon as they have to describe themselves, oh, I'm Jewish, I'm this, I'm that. So you're going off of the identity politics. Okay, great. So what about Milo? Because I feel like he's got such good qualities, but he's also like clearly still got one foot in one, camp and one foot in the other. On the one hand, he's like, oh, I'm Christianity and this and that. And then he's like, yeah, but you're gay. You know what I mean? Like, which is fine, whatever. But like, you can't straddle the fence that way. So what do you think about him?
Well, I could never take Milo seriously. Like, just looking at him, I can't take him seriously. The way he talks, the things he says, Yes, he's super fruity, super flamboyant. If you went to Eastern Europe, and you probably know this yourself, and you were Milo, and you were trying to, do some damage in politics and not in politics, like you would be ridiculed and laughed at. So personally, I can't take him seriously. To me, he's more of an entertainer, and an obvious opportunist. In the post-election era, back in 2016, he described himself as a member of the alt-right, back when the movement wasn't as clearly defined as it is now, back when the media was giving it a certain spin, back when it was all essentially a meme war. And then he jumped off of that ship and distanced himself from the movement once it became more defined, and once some of the more prominent figures in the movement stepped up and became more actively involved in politics. So Milo is essentially an opportunist. He's one thing one day, one thing the other day, and he's been completely run out of the game, and now he's desperate to come back in. But times have changed. The pendulum has swung in the other direction, and people like him are just no longer beneficial to the movement, or nor are they significant in any way.
No, you're right. Because, like, I feel his character or caricature, he would only really appeal to the West, because in Eastern Europe, it's like, you're neither manly nor a woman. So what are you doing? Like you're just
Yeah.
straddling the fence. Okay. So someone who's like quite close to Ben is Steven Crowder. And he's also kind of a dodgy person. Do you have any opinions about him? Because for a moment, I used to think like, oh, okay, good for him. He's like making fun of the libtards and all the rest of it. But actually, he's really kind of towing the neocon line, just like all the rest of them. So I'm kind of, and he's always in a dress. He's always like pretending to be a tranny as if it's like making fun of them, but really it's like he's almost letting his inner gayness just shine out. I don't know. What do you think about him?
I personally don't even, I don't watch.
No, I
I
haven't.
don't
Yeah.
even watch Elder. I enjoy the change my mind memes when I
Sure.
see them here and there.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
other than that, he's just like the rest of the people
Yeah.
that we talked about, as we refer to them. They're kosher conservatives. They're clearly Zionists, and they put Israel first over the U.S. And like there's videos out there of Crowder saying these things, and I mean anyone can look these things up
Yeah.
online at any time. So these people all fall into the same category for me. They're they're funny and entertaining to watch because they make libtards look ridiculous. It's what I used to do when I started out my channel, but they never really touch on the elephant in the room, and they actively misguide and sort of distract their audiences, from the big question.
Totally. It's like look over here, don't look over here for sure. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the false messiah, Jordan Peterson. Do you have any opinions on him? Because like I've seen his someone like gifted me as a birthday present ticket to see his show and his book, which I have back here. It's I'm using it as a door stopper. That's what it's good for, just incoherent babblings. Anyway, so I saw him and I thought, okay, he's all right, whatever, he's not saying anything, he's just like a typical Canadian dad or teacher, like don't do this and do that. But people are like worshiping this guy, and if you see anything in the comment sections, they're like total fanboys for him. They're just like, "How dare you? He's brought me closer to Christ. He's made me clean my room." Yeah, but he's cucked you so hard. Like, what are you talking about? I never noticed it until I noticed it, and then I realized, wow, am I stupid or what? Like, so what do you think about him?
Yeah, exactly. He's basically a father figure for men who never really had a strong father figure in their lives. For guys who have daddy issues. And I know this because I've gone to two of his
You
presentations,
too.
and as you said, it was a room full of these like beta cucks and soy boys who were just like sitting there worshiping him, worshiping the chair that he sat on, and every single bit of it. And you can just tell by the audience who these people are and why he appeals to them. It's because they've essentially never had a prominent fatherly or manly figure in their life, and then you have Jordan Peterson who's coming into their lives, telling them to clean their rooms and to discipline themselves, and giving them basically advice on how to pick up girls. Like, this is stuff that I learned before high school. So I like, he doesn't appeal to me, and he definitely clearly appeals to these kinds of people. And then obviously, it's quite obvious that there's a lot of hypocrisy involved in the things that Jordan Peterson says. He talks about how things like tribalism are bad, and how collectivism is bad, and how it's you need to focus on individualism. Well, that's clearly not true, because the most successful societies and tribes were collectivist people, and nations built on individualism. People are a lot stronger, cohesive,
Absolutely.
collectivist unit, and obviously he knows this.
Yeah.
And he's obviously just another globalist puppet who's obviously also very anti-white. We always hear him mentioning the Jews and Hitler and the Nazis, and how bad, like the horrible things that white people have done, and how white people how bad nationalism is, this and that, right? So once again, I mean, all of these people with time, they surface and they come to light, and their true colors are revealed. But yeah, he had a lot of people fooled from the beginning, and he had a lot of momentum, and his Patreon, he was getting like $100,000 on Patreon monthly, right? But once again, is he, to me, he's just some old guy, some psychologist basically. He's not or a philosopher. He's not someone whose opinion I
Hmm.
value in the political world at all.
Absolutely. And when you mentioned that he's a globalist, like a lot of his fans and people in general don't seem to know that he worked on the Agenda 21, United Nations Sustainable Development. He like helped write that. So he's obviously playing both sides. And at the same time with his psychology, like people don't also know that he's heavily into like the occult. Like Jung was like deeply into this whole magic crap. And it's like, what kind of therapy? Like I almost feel like what he's doing on stage is like mass hypnosis on people because he just like talks, says absolutely nothing, and people are like, yeah, yeah, that's right. You know what I mean? It's just it's total brainwashing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I guess like going off of the topic of fakers and posers, I like how you called out Lauren Southern as well, the whole trad thought situation going on. Like, what's up? Why is there no like decent chicks out there? You know, I'm not claiming to be whatever, but I would definitely consider myself like a normal traditional person. My mother raised me to be womanly, you know what I mean? And not to compete with men, but to complement the relationship. And all these women are like, hey, I'm so sexy, but I'm also super traditional. And like, I'm so political. I'm so woke. It's like, you can't be all of those things. They're contradictory things. So,
Mhm.
you know, any more trad thoughts you want to expose?
Well, I think that trad thought train has crashed. I don't see any value in even exposing anyone anymore,
Yeah.
or anything because it's so obvious. But I mean, in the case of Lawrence Southern,
Mm.
you have to be pretty stupid or just very thirsty as a guy not to see it. She's selling you this trad dream, saying
Mm-hmm.
that she's a trad girl, this and
Mm-hmm.
that, telling you how to act.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she doesn't have any children. She's not married yet.
Mm-mm.
She's traveling the world filming documentaries, and you're funding her lifestyle.
Yeah.
And in the end, she just fooled everyone. I
Yeah.
knew I knew it was going to happen.
Mm.
She took the money in hand because she probably made a couple mil from the donations and the
Mm-hmm.
book and everything all together, and split with the money. So
Yeah.
I knew this was going to happen from the start. And
Mm-hmm.
once again, it just goes back to opportunism, right? They see that you can call them relatively attractive females if you'd like, or anything, and then they know they can milk the movement and the guys in it,
Yeah.
for money. And we've seen it happen again and again, but I don't think it'll be happening much more.
Yeah, I think guys have clued up to it. And that documentary was like oddly favorable to the migrants. It was just like, oh, they're just people. It's like, honey, they're
Yeah.
not just people. They're very strategic people. And did you see her like slutty sister as well? It's like, God, kind of runs in the family. Um, so I also noticed that you talked a little bit about the boomers, and the boomers have kind of become like a meme unto themselves. So care to share a little bit more about that? The boomers and the now the Generation Z have a new name. They're the Zoomers. So I think
Mm.
that there's a lot of hope though, because even though that like my parents are boomers, and like I think that we're kind of just rejecting that because they seem to believe everything that was put on TV, and they really trust authority, and the official story is the only story. And it's like like millennials and
Mhm.
Generation Z were just like, that's bullshit. Like that is
Mhm.
verifiable bullshit. So I like that we're not continuing down that same road, that there's hope. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, our parents and boomers in general, they
Yeah.
come from a different generation, a generation where, you didn't have all this information at your fingertips.
Mm-hmm.
We're fortunate to live in a world where, we can go online in 10 seconds, and, verify information, verify,
Mm-hmm.
you know, facts, and, see things that are happening, halfway across the world, whereas they weren't so fortunate enough, to have this information readily available. So, they had one source that they had to trust, or one person that they had to trust. So
Mm-hmm.
their mentality is definitely a lot different than ours. They're obviously a little bit more close-minded.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I mean, it's quite obvious, with the boomers, especially in the U.S. A lot of them are, evangelical Zionist Christians,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, who put Israel first, this and that, same old spiel, right? But
Yeah.
at times are changing. The new Zoomer generation is coming up, and obviously they're a lot more edgy,
Mm-hmm.
even than our generation, and they'll
Yeah.
probably be a lot more conservative, seeing as how things are going and the way uh, things are, the direction that things are heading in.
Yeah.
So I mean, I have hope, and things will change. Everything is obviously a reaction to the status quo,
Yeah.
and these young kids, as you probably saw a few weeks ago, the famous image of those kids who were taken to that feminist art exhibit, where woman stripped naked in front of them. The reaction on those children's faces is exactly,
It's
it is
disgusting.
spot on to how these kids feel about all this crap that's
Yeah.
being pushed onto them.
Yeah, they're so woke that they're awake. Yeah, definitely. But do you think that there's maybe like a difference culturally between the boomers? Like, for example, our parents are like more Eastern, whereas like American or Canadian or British boomers, maybe. Do you think that they're kind of all the same because of the generation that they're from, or do you think that they kind of? I find like Eastern European people are a little bit more like they have the bullshit detector because and I met, when we emailed to each other, I was telling you like I think that the communism really like it's different living in communism and then fighting quote communism because you're
Hmm.
not in it and you don't understand what
Yeah.
like it actually is. And so I think maybe the West has a harder time calling bullshit, whereas people in the East are like, please, back when I was kid, I know, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
they're less
Yeah.
susceptible, I think.
Of course, because like we said,
Hmm.
when we were chatting through the emails,
Yeah,
like our parents lived through it.
yeah.
People in Eastern Europe,
Hmm.
and the people that were behind the Iron Curtain, they lived through all of it, so
Yeah.
they have firsthand experience. Whereas boomers in the U.S. and even like the millennials, like the
Hmm.
Antifa
Oh
worms
God.
who are pro communism, like they've only read about it,
Yeah.
in university and at
Yeah.
Starbucks. So it's like it's a lot different to live through something
Hmm.
and to idealize something that you're reading about.
Hmm.
So that's the main difference, and obviously, it translates onto the way that our parents see things, the ways that we see things. Like for instance, Serbia and much
Hmm.
of Western Europe, or sorry, Eastern Europe,
Hmm.
has been at war with Islam for maybe 1300 years now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We were under Islamic
Hmm.
oppression for 1300 years, actually battling them. So to us, this is nothing new. It's not
Hmm.
foreign to us. Whereas people in the West, clearly, it's only been happening to them. Maybe in the last 20 years.
Yes.
Places like the UK, places like
Hmm.
uh, Germany
Hmm.
for a little bit longer there, Sweden,
Sure.
obviously, right, and now maybe Canada.
Hmm.
So it's new to these countries, and that's why a lot of people still don't know how to deal with it,
Hmm.
and they won't know how to deal with it until it really escalates and really sort of gets in their face. But we've faced these things, and we're aware of the threat. So once
Yeah.
again.
No, you're quite right. And you like the two things that, you brought up Islam and you also when we were just talking about communism, like do you think that it's becoming popular among young people because it's not in their memory, like it's not in their lifetime. They're just reading about it through their Marxist professors. When I was at university, my teacher's like, "I'm a Marxist." And I'm like, "Aren't you Ukrainian? Why would you be a Marxist? They tried to kill you." It's like they literally tried to starve you to death. But in any case, so maybe they just like you said, they're idealizing something that they never. Is that why you think that it's popular? It's because it seems like a good idea. Because as you said earlier, being collective, being a community, a group, you're obviously stronger as a group than you are by yourself. So maybe they think that the concept is right, but it's not real communism. So the application is not right, and for some reason, these morons think that they're going to do it properly. So I don't understand, like, who's doing the PR, the marketing for socialism, because
it's
Well,
actually so unappealing.
well, yeah, of course. Well, the people who are doing the PR are, people like Bernie Sanders, obviously,
Breadline Bernie.
in the U.S. Yeah, and I mean, it's like, when you look at him, he's like this, like, frantic old man. And young people sort of always, they like these kinds of characters appeal to young people, and the ideologies they push appeal to them, obviously, because they're kind of they're foreign ideologies, and people sort of always want what they can't have. They think the grass is greener
Mm-hmm.
on the other side of the fence, yada
Mm-hmm.
yada yada. So that's why communism appeals to them. They think that the system is oppressing them, and that communism is the answer. Yet when you talk to these people, as I've done at numerous communist rallies,
Mm-hmm.
none of them seem too keen on moving to any socialist or communist countries.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never see these Antifa people looking to move to Caracas in Venezuela, or anything like this. So it's yeah, it's a joke. They don't even really understand it. It's something completely foreign to them, just something that's romanticized and idealized at their universities, and so heavily pushed onto them to the point that they're essentially brainwashed into believing that it's this ideal system, but
Mm-hmm.
it never works out in the end.
Mm-hmm. Well, they don't have to move there because it's coming to you. Even better. The funniest thing is like they don't. How do we make freedom more appealing? I know that sounds bizarre because it should be inherently appealing, but don't they realize that they're not going to be having their little pride parades when communism is in full effect? The only parade you're going to be having is for the supreme leader. Like, don't you realize that? You're literally going to live in North Korea in America. How do we, like, because we're young, how do we appeal to younger people? Because, that's our
Well,
only
I
hope.
think I
Hmm.
think yeah, they absolutely, like, they don't see that. And obviously all the religious minorities that they worship won't be able to have their you know mosques, synagogues, churches, or whatever else, right?
Yeah.
Under communism, no one's going to be openly, celebrating their, religious diversity.
Hmm.
But yeah, in terms of like appealing to younger people, I think we're already doing that. It's
Hmm.
it's sort of happening on its own. It's very organic, and once again, it's just happening as a reaction to all the Marxist crap that they're being force fed in university,
Hmm.
all the propaganda that they're being bombarded by in the media, Netflix, MTV, all of this pop culture. So the sort of this counterculture is emerging,
Hmm.
and not much has to be done other than what we're doing now in terms of appealing to younger people, exposing these issues, putting them out there. Nobody's watching the news anymore. Everyone's on YouTube. So, just keep doing what you're doing, and, you'll
Yeah.
be reaching tons of people. And this is how it goes. If you talk to a lot of younger people already, they already know these things and they see them. They might be a little bit reluctant to talk about
Hmm.
them, but if you sort of poke at them,
Hmm.
chances are all of this will come out, right? And they'll tell you exactly how they feel, at least from what I see and from my experience.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that you brought up that it's a kind of an organic thing because, like, I saw some of the protests and things that you go to, and to me, it's like, are they all just paid or something? Because that is so. It seems so unnatural. They all have the same talking points. As soon as you talk to someone else, like the enforcer of the cult, comes over, like, don't talk to them. They're Nazis. Go look them up. Like, it's just so
Hmm.
obviously fake. Or again, it's not natural. It's not the way people used to protest before when it was like the anti-Vietnam War. They're like seriously there, like they're serious about not going to
Hmm.
war. Whereas here, it's just like you see the same people at these protests, and of course some of them are paid to be there to fluff up the numbers and drive the narrative. So, I mean, like, because you were there firsthand, what do you think? Are these people genuinely like brainwashed, or are they just like working?
Well, they're NPCs, right?
Yeah,
That NPC meme,
Orange Man
it was
bad.
probably, yeah, it
Yeah,
was it was the best meme,
that
in
was
the
a good
last
meme.
year,
Yeah,
because it nailed it perfectly. Like,
so
these
good.
people are literally,
Gamers are
just
woke.
parrots of,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, the NPC thing perfectly describes these people because from what I've seen at these rallies, there's usually like a few people that are willing to engage and have some further discussion, but 90% are just there holding signs, looking frail, looking weak, and just they have no idea why they're there. They have no idea what they're protesting. They're just doing it because, as you said, someone is paying them. Some NGO, some Soros-funded NGO is paying them to stand there in the rain and freeze, or they're just being recruited by the leaders of these groups, like you said, to buff up the numbers and to make it seem as if the cause is bigger than it is. But it seems like the numbers are dwindling
Yeah.
all across the globe. Like it seems like less and less people are protesting these things just because they realize how stupid they look, and people I don't really like to use like this analogy, but people on the right are a lot more open to discussion generally than people on the left.
Agree.
um like if I was going to go protest something, I'd be armed to the teeth with knowledge about the issues that I'm protesting, and if anyone wanted to talk to me about it, I'd be more than happy to discuss these things because I'm passionate about these things and I'd want
Yeah.
to inform people. Whereas nowadays it's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
People don't want to talk, they don't want to engage. They're openly told not to engage with people just because they know that that the people who question them will blow their narrative
Yeah.
and will expose how shallow and stupid they are.
Of course. Even if I don't know certain things, it's like just think it through what you're saying. Just take the logical steps. Like, does that make sense? And I don't think that they're trained to do that. Like, definitely not in school anyway. They just don't have that curiosity. Like, when I was a kid, I was always in trouble for asking, why is this? Why is that? Or how come? But I don't think that they're like that. They're just these, like, weak, as you said. They look frail. They're just like, oh, I hold the sign? Oh, okay. It's really pathetic. It's like the only way that they feel any value or self-worth or something. It's really quite sad. So going off of maybe like a little bit about the official narrative, like did you see in the news that anyone who's a conspiracy theorist is like a domestic terrorist now?
hmm
What the
Yeah,
F?
I saw that. It's all part of this clampdown on
Yeah.
alternative media. Obviously, free speech on a bigger scale. They want to essentially boot out uh, any alternative news platforms, any alternative political commentators, and they're denouncing them, labeling them as people who spread fake news, this and that. It's been happening for a few years now, and it's only going to get worse. Hence, why I don't put too
Yeah.
much effort into putting out content regularly on YouTube because I do see where it's going, and I'm already seeing numerous conservative pundits that I know, guys like James Alsop, Vincent James
Yeah, I
of the
watched
Red
them.
Elephants, like
I watched them.
they've been screwed by YouTube. You know what I mean? They've been
Yeah.
completely demonetized.
Yeah.
So I don't invest too much time into
Yeah.
these things because I know that the chances of my channel and all these other channels going down overnight in the next couple months is increasing every single day. So yeah, I mean it's the same old thing. They're labeling people as conspiracy theorists, as domestic terrorists. They want everyone to listen to their narrative and not
Yeah.
question anything, and that's what they want to monopolize.
Only we can spread fake news. You can't spread real news.
Exactly.
That's not allowed.
Exactly.
Yeah, they have a real monopoly on that, don't they? So I guess you've obviously heard about the shootings and things that happened. A lot of people are calling them like false flags and whatnot. Like, do you believe that it's these drugged out young kids who are manipulated into doing these shootings, or do you think it's like staged, or what do you think? Because I just don't believe that many people are going around shooting each other. Like, you know what I mean? Most people don't want to do these things. So there's, the pharmaceuticals that all these people are being prescribed. I don't think that's really helping them. So what do you think? Is this real or not?
I think it's completely fabricated. The mass shootings always happen at the time when they need a distraction from
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah.
And I think in this case it was the whole Epstein
Oh,
scandal, whole pedo scandal, right?
yeah.
The ties, the like Epstein went from being an asset to a complete liability.
Yep.
So it was
Killed
time for
himself in
him
an
to
empty
go.
room.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
cameras
Yeah.
malfunction as they always do.
Mm.
But I think the shootings are fake.
Yeah.
I think more and more people are realizing that they're fake, that they're essentially just false flags.
Yeah.
Like you saw what happened. It was like Epstein, 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 Epstein. Then the shootings happened, and then
Gun control.
the focus completely shifted off of that,
Yeah.
and everyone was fighting over whether the shooter was Antifa or whether he was a conservative, this and that. Did he worship Marx? Did he write the manifesto in which he worshipped Trump? So that's exactly what they do, and that's their main goal, is to divide people and completely distract them
Yeah.
off of the bigger things that are happening. So I think the shootings are completely fake. Now, whether or not the people involved in them are actual government agents, or just loose pill popping kids that are manipulated by the government into doing these things. That's open for debate. But
Yeah.
I mean, the main purpose of these is to distract and to divide and all these things, and obviously to grab guns at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I totally agree. And it's the funniest thing. I was just thinking, like, who would you want to defend you in times like this? And it's like women in the military. Oh, what another mistake. Why are we letting them do that? Like, I don't know if you watch Owen Benjamin at all, but like he was playing this video about a woman trying to like pull the cannon or whatever, and she couldn't do it after like 2 minutes, and then a guy comes one time, boom. It's just like, why are we doing this? Why are we letting women do this? Like, they can't even hold the gun. Like, why?
Yeah.
Please tell me you
Yeah,
don't agree
no.
with this.
Stay in the kitchen.
I know. And the worst part is these women can't even freaking cook. It's like they take it as an insult, make me a sandwich. You can't even make a sandwich, like, honestly.
Yeah, like just
Terrible.
let men fight the wars and just do your thing. Like, be a womanly woman. Do the things that make you beautiful and useful as a woman.
I
You don't
agree.
need to go and do the things that guys do. You don't need to go and fight. That's like a manly thing. So leave war to the men, and go do all the other things that you're so wonderful at doing.
I don't
And there's
even.
no shame in saying that. It's
Yes.
it's just, for my end, it's all compliments.
Yes. Why would they
When I
even
say
want to
these
do
things.
that? That's what I don't understand. Why would you even want to do that? It's like you're not going to look, if men in women's sports are going to beat you, then you're definitely not going to outcompete a man in the military. Just stop. This is what feminism has done. They make women think that they can do more than they can, and there's no shame in knowing your limits. I have no upper body strength. Simple as that. Like, just accept
Yeah.
it. Just accept it. Okay, so I noticed you were also kind of taking the piss out of Trudeau, which, well done. So, what do you think is going to happen do you follow Canadian politics at all? Do you think anything is going to anything good come out of the election this fall? Not really.
Uh,
It's okay if you don't. We
no,
can go ahead and skip it.
I'm pretty black-pilled on the Canadian political scene, just because there's not much difference between like conservative and liberal here.
They're all the
I
same.
do think Trudeau is going to go. I don't see him being reelected, just because he's messed up so many times and essentially ridiculed himself
Yeah.
on so many issues. It's just proven to be a complete clown. And I think even the most staunch liberals and Trudeau supporters are seeing through him now, and they see that he's just this like autistic guy who's incapable of doing anything. Who talks about banning plastic straws and then is caught drinking. Uh, from juice boxes with plastic straws 10 minutes later. So
Juice
yeah,
boxes.
he's a joke. He's not meant to be a leader. He's more into coming to the Pride Parade with his children, and then being a politician. So
Why?
let him do that.
I don't understand. Okay, like I've been to quite a few back in the day before I got based. And oh my God, they're always naked. Why are they always naked? Why is their dick swinging in the public in like bondage gear or people on leashes? Like, why would you want a child, let alone like a 5-year-old child, to see this? It's
Yeah.
I just don't understand what benefit you think there is to that. That's the one thing. Like, you say what you want about the Muslims, but in Britain, they were the only ones who protested teaching the whole LGBT thing in the schools. Like, look, and they said this, and it's the best point ever. It's perfectly fine to acknowledge other lifestyles exist. There's all types of people in the world. That's fine. What's not fine is the aggressive promotion of one lifestyle over all the others, and that's the problem. Okay, we get it. You're gay.
Of
Good for
course.
you. Like, great. But why do you have to teach a 6-year-old how to put on a condom and which lube is best for anal? What's wrong with you? Like, seriously, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, for sure, and that's because Muslims still have very strong value systems,
Yeah.
and they don't want their children being exposed to these things. They don't want their 5-year-olds, seeing nudity and all these things. Like there's a time and place for everything, and children will eventually see all of that, be exposed to it, or learn about it from their parents. But at a later age, like there's
Yeah.
no need to bring your 3-year-old toddler who can barely walk and say 4.5 words to a gay pride parade. Like to me it's just kind of sickening, and it's just the parents essentially just virtue signaling, trying to show that they're ultra progressive when in fact it's extremely damaging, for these the children, because it's a whole different psychology that's involved. You're sexualizing these children, and that's not supposed to happen to children until they hit puberty.
At the very minimum, until the
At the
teenage.
minimum.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. So then, what do you think about all of this? Because Canada's really going off the deep end with this whole transitioning your children thing. Like, so hold on a second, you can't mistreat your pet, but you can chemically and surgically castrate a child. That's not normal.
Yeah.
There's really nothing more to
and
say.
and the, and the yeah, and the federal government is giving or the transition like surgeries and operations, they're free. Like the federal government pays for them in Canada now, which is also ridiculous. But once again, this whole trans thing, it just goes hand in hand with the whole LGBT movement, right? As you can see, like it's just really been accelerated in within the past few years, and like especially within the past few months. Like Pride used to be like a 1 day thing. Now it's suddenly it's a month. They have a whole month, and it's just like you see all these corporations and companies really pushing it, changing their logos to the rainbow flag. So they're pushing it really hard, but at the same time they're getting a lot of backlash. I think they're getting more backlash than ever because they're really trying to shove it down people's throats. No pun intended. But it's absolutely backfiring on them
Yeah.
because people don't want their 4-year-old toddlers seeing penises swinging out in the street, and guys on leashes acting like dogs and being whipped.
Yeah.
And nor do they want their kids being taken to drag queen reading hour at the local
Oh, that's
library.
another.
So yeah, so it's all part of the same thing, but luckily I don't think it's going anywhere because, like we said, it's just being pushed so far that people just aren't buying it anymore.
No, I hope that you're right, because I saw some articles about some guy who didn't want to transition his daughter to a boy, and then he was like not allowed to see his daughter anymore. They actually have started putting legislation in place to take your children away, and I just think like that's terrible. That's just the worst thing that can happen. And I don't understand, like, because you're spot on, and I said this in a different video in a different interview with someone. Pride used to be like a one-day thing, then it turned into a weekend, then it's Pride Week, then it's Pride Month. Now they did it in June about Pride itself, then July there was like gays in science, something like that, and now in August there's like Pride in a different country, so again it's back on the news. It's like, so is this going to be forever now? Like, is every month going to be Pride? Like, I just don't understand. Like, why does no one else get this much airtime? Like, nobody else gets this much airtime.
Well, it's like, first of all, if you want to be gay, go ahead, be gay. Like, I don't really see a problem with that, as long as you're not shoving it down people's throats. What you do in your bedroom with someone is completely, like, it's your thing.
Right.
But at the same time, it's the whole LGBT thing. It's essentially, first of all, it's a corporate holiday.
Yeah.
Corporations to make money. That's undeniable.
Of course.
And then second of all, it's all part of this agenda to essentially destroy the family, right?
Yes.
That's why it's being pushed so heavily. That's why, they're trying to infuse the LGBT agenda into the school curriculum and trying to teach kids, in the first grade about homosexual relationships. We see all these children's books all the time with two men kissing, two women kissing, and they're trying to really push this onto young children as early as possible, because they obviously know that young children are extremely impressionable, and there are a lot of children, and especially kids in their teens and high school, are very insecure, especially about their sexualities, this time of puberty, change, this and that. So they know that children are vulnerable during these times, and if you push this agenda onto them hard enough, you may get some of them to start questioning, hey, well, do I like Jenny or do I like John? It's like
why not both?
It's very easy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a part of this agenda, obviously, to destroy the family, to ruin heterosexual relationships to the point where men don't need women and women don't need men, and there's no need to reproduce anymore. Yeah. And we obviously see this happen in Western countries, that have plummeting birth rates. So that's LGBT is just one of the assault tools on the traditional family.
Absolutely. I'm glad you said it. And I feel like maybe it needs to be said, like, no one's against you living your lifestyle. Like, I have friends who are gay. That's fine. Like, I love you. I want you to be happy. I want you to be healthy. But at the same time, you have to understand that there is a normal way to have a relationship. And there is I don't want to say abnormal, but fringe minority ways that deviate from the normal. Like, you're not going to reproduce in a natural way by having homosexual relations. So it's just that. It doesn't have to be an insult. It just is what it is. And I think it's really funny how they like to demonize, and I'm just going to move on to like the Russia thing for a minute. They love to say like, oh, Russia's anti-gay. You know how many like Russian musicians are gay? You know how many Russian actors are gay? Like, and it's pretty open and everyone knows that. And at this, they're singing on stage and Putin's there at the front row watching. Like, okay, that's not a problem. The point is, and this is the legislation that they put in, he doesn't want propaganda towards children about gayness. And that's the difference. It's not that they will kill you. They're millionaires, okay? They're not going to kill you. But the point is, you can't do this to children. Let an adult make up their mind and live the way you want to live. Okay, good luck. So...
Yeah, exactly. Like, it all goes back to children being impressionable. And nowadays we have, like record numbers of children coming from broken homes and broken families, children being raised by single moms. And, when you start to push these things onto children who don't have a strong father figure in the house, they'll absorb it much easier than they would if they had,
Yeah.
than they would if they were raised in a house with like a healthy, heterosexual
Yeah.
relationship between the mother and the father, obviously, right?
Yeah.
So it's all part of, like I said, it's all part of the agenda and this assault uh, on the family. I have no problem with homosexuals and the things they do. Like it's been around forever.
Yeah. It
Um,
really has.
but don't you don't need a parade, to sort of illustrate your sexual preferences. Like being gay is completely mainstream nowadays.
Yeah.
Yet they're still acting as if they're being stoned and hung off trees. It's like, okay, no, that's a problem in Saudi Arabia and
Yeah.
many of these other Muslim countries, but they're acting as if they're the most oppressed minority here in North America and in
Absolutely.
Europe. It's just kind of pathetic.
I agree. When major corporations are flying your flag, and when churches are flying your flag, and when schools are flying
Yeah,
your flag, you're not oppressed. I'm sorry, you kind of won. And
exactly.
it's not even the homosexual relationships that affect children. I almost think like even in heterosexual relationships, what they've done with this excessive promiscuity, like pornography, has really ruined normal heterosexual relationships because they think you're supposed to do, I don't even want to say what, like some freaky ass shit, and like that's normal. That's not normal. Like, okay, you can do whatever you and your partner want to do, but just know that that person is being paid and your wife is not going to do those things. Or, you know what I mean? Like your husband's not going to want to gangbang you with 20 dudes. Like just know that. Okay? So
Mhm.
it's really like kind of a weapon more than some guide to intimacy. It's not like, teaching you romance. It's teaching you filth, and it's ruining. Men can't, like, what is it, like 1 in 3 men have like erectile dysfunction from watching so much porn and just wanking off all day. Like, come on.
Yeah,
This is killing men and it's making women insecure. I don't want to do those things, right?
yeah.
So,
Of course, it's taking like an intimate act between two people and making it public, right? You're not supposed to see people having sex. It's a
yes.
private act between two. So there's the first obviously negative and completely unnatural thing about porn, and then the second is obviously the expectations. Because chances are that 99% of men aren't going to marry a chick that looks like a porn star and that's willing to do all these things. So it basically just sets unrealistic expectations for your partner, and on a psychological level, it completely discourages and demotivates people from pursuing relationships in the real world, because it's like, okay, I don't need to go out and find a girl and engage in sexual activity with her when I can just watch it on my computer screen or on my phone. So
Yep.
that's the biggest problem, and it's essentially desensitizing young men. It's isolating them, and it's just a complete, essentially, attack on the psyche. It's basically, when you watch porn, you're essentially cucking yourself. You're watching
Yes.
another man, screwing a woman, right?
Yeah.
And it's horrible.
I agree, and it's not good for either sexes, but it mostly affects men, and you need men to have like their full jizz strength. You know what I mean? Like you can't just be constantly horny, then you're never thinking. You know what I mean? Like it's the guy's not going to be able to defend an invasion if he's like, you know, wanking in the basement kind of thing. So it's definitely not good. So I'm glad that it's really nice that men are waking up to this. Like there's been that like no fap movement where guys are like, okay, I'm not going to masturbate. And I think that's great because okay, you cannot be consumed with sex all your life. Like how are you going to meet a partner? How are you going to provide for that partner? What kind of job skills are you going to learn? You can't just be 24/7 thinking about sex. There's more to life than sex. So I'm glad that men are saying it. It's not just women who are called prudes because they're the ones saying it. I'm,
Hmm.
I'm really glad to hear men are maturing on that topic. So that's good. Let me just quickly move on to the back to the Islam thing. It seems like everyone is demonizing Islam and like, oh, Sharia's coming. And like, you know what? That may well be a genuine threat because they're actually very organized. They have a goal and they're going for the long run. You know, they're quickly, they're chipping away. They're putting people in politics. They're changing laws. Okay, you got to hand it to them. But you also brought up the whole Zionist thing. And I wonder, like, who is the bigger threat? Because they're also very diligent. They're also pushing and advancing their agenda. So, like, between the two of them, like, who is the bigger adversary, really? Because you're actually not allowed to criticize one group, like, by law. You say anything about the Holocaust, you say anything about the Jewish people or the nation, you're in trouble. Like, if Florida just passed the law that you cannot even boycott or any of that stuff. So is Sharia really the biggest problem that we have? Because at the same time, like, they're all just political pawns. Like, the people themselves probably don't buy into this. It's just the narrative that is pushed about them. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like,
Yeah, well, you just have to ask yourself, are Muslims are Muslims the ones that are running the banks? Are they the ones that are lobbying America? Do they have the biggest foreign lobby in America?
yeah.
Most influential foreign lobby in America? Do they run Hollywood? Do they run the media? Are they vastly overrepresented in
Yeah.
all these key societal sectors?
Yeah.
So is it really Muslims that are putting Muslims in
Exactly.
government and into all these political parties? So I don't have anything against Muslims. Personally, I just see that some aspects of Islam are incompatible with
course.
with the West,
Of course.
with Europe. But at the same time, I do see exactly what's happening, and I do see that Muslims are being demonized beyond a doubt, by all these people, by people who are essentially destroying the Middle East
Yeah.
and then forcing all of these people to come into Europe. So essentially,
That's
it's just a never-ending cycle. You're telling people that Islam is the greatest threat. You're pushing all of these wars in the Middle East, which are in turn to bring a lot more Muslims into Europe and a hell of a lot, radicalization into Europe and the rest of the West simultaneously.
Yep.
So, we really wouldn't have this problem with mass migration in Europe if we had tighter borders, if, all these things such as open borders, multiculturalism, and diversity weren't being pushed onto us. And well, it's not really Muslims that are pushing these things onto us. They're not the ones with the big political lobbies.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. It's like people talk about the mass migration, but nobody actually talks about who's bringing them in, whose little organizations are bringing them in. So the very people who are saying, oh, if Muslims come into this country, the Jews are going to be kicked out and exterminated. Yeah, but you're the ones bringing them here to what? Bolster your victimhood group or something? Like, I don't understand. It's almost like they're bringing them to be the agitators or something, which I think probably Christians have more in common with Islam than they do with Judaism, because they, probably they don't have everything, but just traditional values, men, women, certain things, like they have much more in common. Whereas, isn't Tel Aviv like the #1 gay city or something in the world? You know what I mean? Like, how can you call yourself a religious place when you're doing everything that goes against your own religion, allegedly? So I don't know. It just seems very contrived. It just seems like we're supposed to hate these people, but I don't hate them. Like, they're being used just like everyone else is being used. So, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, they're being used to push a political agenda
Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily benefit the host country. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I obviously agree that that mass migration, mass Islamic, any form of mass migration into another place, especially Europe, is catastrophic, and creates all this tension, all these problems, all of this division. That's completely undeniable. But you can't be demonizing Islam
Yeah.
and Muslims, and pushing for the destruction of Iran, Syria, Libya, Iraq, and all of these countries, and then saying that this is going to benefit your country when it isn't. It's going to have a massive spillover effect, and you'll get more Muslims and more of
Yeah.
this radical Islamic ideology in your country
Yeah.
than before. And it's obviously it's not all Jews that are
No,
behind
of
this.
course not.
You know, obviously it's not all Jews that are inviting Islam into Europe, because a lot of them obviously know the dangers of Islam. They see it as incompatible. But a lot of Jews are purposely doing this so that they could be the victims, and so that they can further enact further policies,
Yeah.
and sort of strengthen their political lobbies.
Yeah.
And you can always you always see it. They're the victim. It's the evil white Nazis and the Islamists. I've seen this. I've seen mainstream articles on this from Germany. It's like, okay, Germany's becoming increasingly more anti-Semitic, like this and that. It's like, yeah, well, it's because you're importing groups, hostile groups
Yeah.
that you've been at war at for centuries now. You're bringing them here, and then you're playing the victim at the end of the day. You're saying that these groups are hostile. The groups from the Middle East are hostile, and then also the local German, the people on the right are hostile, because they're having this reaction to their country being overrun by migration, and you're sitting on the fence playing the victim. So
Yeah.
it's just an ongoing cycle, and this is
Yeah.
exactly why I've been so focused on exposing guys like Tommy Robinson,
Yeah.
and I think a lot more people now are starting to see it themselves as well.
No, I think you're completely right. Like when you change the population demographics and then you say that it's more anti-Semitic, it's like, why? Why is that? It's not by accident,
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. But nowadays everyone's anti-Semitic, so it's fine. It says it doesn't even mean anything anymore. Yeah.
exactly.
No, totally. Gosh, it's very sad. Do you think that there's anything we can do? I mean, like, not to take up too much of your time, but like just to, as a maybe like a positive note, is it just like you said, just keep spreading the word and keep talking to people, and hopefully when the time comes, we'll be able to act because we know we're on the same team, or is it just like it's kind of a lost war anyway?
Well,
They're stronger than us, and it is what it is.
It's absolutely not the lost war, and I think it's as I've mentioned a few times during the show. I think it's going in our favor, and it's only going to go more so in our favor as things get more ludicrous. But personally, like, I got into YouTube a few years ago thinking, hey, if I can grow this channel to be large enough, and have some influence, then I'll attract like-minded people, who have bigger audiences and who have some influence, and we can all get together outside of YouTube and actually start doing things in the political world.
Yeah.
Like, if you take two channels with 500,000 subscribers on them, you put them together, you work together, like, you're reaching 1 million people, like, minimum. You know what I mean? Then multiply this by 10. So
Sure.
all of us YouTubers, doesn't matter if you have a small channel, big channel.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of us are on the same team. We all think the same. If we only gathered the balls to sort of do these things outside of YouTube, we could do a lot of damage. But a lot of people are just too comfortable. They want to sit in their chairs and just make videos and get likes and comments and this, and they really don't want to mobilize and organize in the real world. And until they do, nothing's going to change. It's definitely great to make videos. You're going to be reaching a lot of people, spreading the message. But if you really want to get serious and if you really want to do some damage, start getting together with people like on a local level, have weekly, monthly meetups with like-minded people,
Yep.
and you'll see what's going to happen. Just try to grow the movement. And it's just I'm a little bit black-pilled by this because I've yet to find people who truly want to do stuff outside of YouTube, who want to organize and mobilize. But I think as things get more and more, as times get tougher, and as YouTube starts to clamp down on a lot of these people, I think they will be forced to resort to more IRL activism.
I think that you're completely right. It's all well and good to have an online community, but you need to actually take that to the real world and apply it to, as you said, mobilize and do something about it, because all these protesters are out there. But I think people are just, and fear is the worst thing because it's so crippling, but I think people are just afraid that Antifa is going to show up and beat them up, and then what am I supposed to do now, get into a brawl with these people? Or police are going to come and, so I don't think it's really anything to be afraid of. Just do it, and if it goes wrong, then there you go. Maybe you're effective. If they've come to shut you down, you're doing something right, maybe. But like, what do you say to that? Because these people are getting like quite hurt from this Antifa stuff. So like, I think that's maybe holding some people back. What do you think?
Well, you just have to play. You have to play their game. If they dox you, or they come and threaten you with violence, you do the same thing back. You hit them back 10 times as hard. Like that's how you win. You know what I mean? But if you cower and you fall to the pressure under fear, nothing's ever going to get done, right? And that's the problem with a lot of people. They rather maintain this online personality behind the safety of their computer screens than go out and do something. Whereas the left, for instance, is completely opposite. Like they're out on the streets bashing people in the head. I'm not saying this is good,
No.
but in terms of being active politically in real life, they're a lot more organized in
That's
general
right.
than people on the right.
Yeah, I do give them props for that they have the balls to actually follow through on it. Like, for example, back when different sects of Christianity, I think when Catholicism was outlawed or something, they would just do it privately in their own home. Like, they would risk going to jail to practice what they wanted to do. So we need to grow a pair and risk what it takes to protect the things that we cherish, because it's not a given that things are going to be this good forever. They're already falling apart, and it's not much more. Like, their plan is pretty well close to where they want it to be. Technology's got us on lock, mass surveillance, mass censorship. People are already pussified and cucked, so it doesn't take many more nails in the coffin. So we really gotta get it going. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, you can still mobilize and do these things, sort of online. Like, I've for the longest time now, I've had this idea of making like an alternative media group, getting a few sort of more popular guys together and making a bigger alternative media group that's not going to be backed by any kinds of special interests or anything like that. Sort of like a halal version of like Infowars, something that's organic and not Zio backed or backed by other special interests. So this is an idea that I've had for a while now. This is something that I will pursue, and I will be kicking a lot of personal money into this project. So we can definitely do these things. We just have to be less selfish. You know what I mean? A lot of people are fixated on making YouTube money behind the comfort of their own screens, but you can do so much more and even make so much more money if you bite the bullet now.
Yeah.
And put in some effort to making something much bigger. And one of these big projects also, I think, should be slowly moving off of this platform. I'm not going to say the name of it,
Of course.
because they'll probably delete your video. But
Thank you.
it's a problem. and I think
Everyone's
that
saying that.
we need to find, yeah, we need to find an alternative,
Yeah.
something that's not going to have people cowering in fear over their content and their life work essentially being
Yeah.
deleted overnight.
You're quite right. That I actually, when I made my YouTube channel, I specifically didn't click the monetize button because I didn't want to have to worry about what I say. And like, I don't need the $1 or $2 someone's going to give me. Like, just watch, listen. If you
Yeah,
like it, great. You know, more power to you. Like, I don't really care so much about that right now. It's just a way to connect with people. And I think you're very right. You cannot rely on someone else's platform and expect them to help you. You know, they have their own agenda, they have their own goals, and you know, it's not their job necessarily to help us. You know, I guess we're just grateful to have the opportunity at this moment. So, yeah, definitely. Well, anyways,
absolutely.
yeah, go ahead. Any idea when you're going to do this, or are you just
No,
still thinking?
I was just going to add, like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to add, at the end of the day, like YouTube is a private company, and they
Yeah.
can do whatever the hell they please and whatever they want to
Hmm.
do. So that should give people all the more incentive to to start doing their own thing elsewhere.
Hmm.
And it's going to take a little bit of time, but
Hmm.
at the end of the day, it's going to be completely worth it because this thing is just so unstable,
Yeah,
and I don't see it. I don't see it as I see it as a short-term solution, but definitely not a long-term one.
for sure, for sure. Well, thank you so much for your time. I don't want to take up any more. I'm sure you've got better things to do than to chat. But I really appreciate your insights. It's really nice to hear the different perspectives. I think the great thing about, I don't know if we're like right or left or I don't really like those terms because it's more about people who have like common sense and good values and you know, we just agree that, you know, we're like on the side of freedom and not on the side of control. And I just think like our community is very diverse, which is really nice because the left is like diverse, diverse. Yeah, everyone's the same but looks different. Well, we look different and we are different, but what we have in common is the values. And I think that's so nice. That's the real kind of diversity that you want. So I'm just really, really glad that
Hmm.
our team isn't full blown demented. You know, it's nice to know our side's gonna hopefully achieve something. Let's hope. Yeah.
We will achieve it. It's just it's just going to take time, but the ball is in our court,
Yeah.
and everything is the more that they push against us, the more that we're going to fight back, and the more that we're ultimately going to win. So
Yeah.
for people out there, just be patient, keep doing what you're doing.
Hmm.
Try to live a healthy lifestyle.
Hmm.
Focus on the long term rather than the short term.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's it. I don't want to sound like Jordan Peterson now, but yeah,
No, you know what? That healthy
that's
lifestyle
that's
thing is
that's my advice.
it's true though because you know what the worst thing is the leftist type of people they think that getting drunk, doing drugs, you know, chopping off your wiener, you know, having venereal disease from doing all sorts of weird sex, that's going to be their ultimate demise and they don't realize it. You know, when we're saying these things like have one spouse for the rest of your life, it's not because we're boring. Okay, trust me, there's nothing boring going on behind the doors. The point is we
Yeah,
understand like what's going to take you to the finish line and they don't, and that's the problem is they're short-sighted. So we have that advantage.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Like it's all about like conservation and preservation. Being strong so that you can last
That's right.
and not falling for the temptation in the moment.
That's it. That's it. That's a good note to end on. Thank you again so much. And I really appreciate your time. And guys, check out his YouTube channel, What's Left of It.
Welcome, and
Thank you.
thanks for having me on the show. It was a pleasure to speak with you, and I'm sure we'll cross paths again sometime soon. Everyone out there, subscribe to this channel. Great work, and I'm sure there's plenty more great material that will come out off of this channel as well.
Oh, thank you so much. All right. Take care. Bye.
You too. Take care.
So I hope you guys enjoyed that chat we had. I think we ended it on a fairly positive note. Ultimately, the takeaway message is you've got to support what you like. I really am pleased to hear that he was considering starting his own platform and getting other YouTubers together to collaborate. I think that's exactly the kind of things that we need to be focusing on doing, because it's not enough to just sit behind the keyboard in our comfortable chairs, as he said, and just complain. Because, we accuse the other side of doing that, which ultimately they are. We call them keyboard warriors, but then what are we doing? We're not doing anything really too different, right? It's not really enough to be comfortable in your quote safe space, right? You need to sort of get out there and do something and mobilize a little bit. And just like he said, he wants to start his platform. We know that Owen and Vox started Unauthorized TV, so that's great. That's exactly the kind of thing that needs to be done, because we can't just sit around waiting to be censored or deplatformed or demonetized, whatever the case may be, right? So we need to diversify, we need to branch out. We do need to have something of our own, something that they can't necessarily take away and, hold over our heads. But at the same time, we are grateful to be here while we're here. So let's take advantage of that. And, as Owen says, don't be afraid to support what you like, because if you don't, then it goes away. And we need more people in our camp and not fewer people. So don't be afraid to like and to share and to actually subscribe, because that does help the algorithm a little bit. You know me, I've never said that in any of my videos except for this one, but I think, maybe it is time to start reminding people that yes, we're doing this to connect and to share and to be part of the community, and of course that is the main goal, but we need more eyes on the message. We need more ears to hear the message, So ultimately, if we don't support each other, then, we lose momentum and it all sort of fizzles away. So hopefully we're able to spread the message, because it's not about fighting the way Antifa fights. It's about winning the hearts and minds of other people, because actually you'll find that you have a lot in common with other people, even if you think that you don't initially. And that is what I'm really happy about when I see the new generations coming up. They see through this really quickly, and they're not falling for the boomer narrative. They're also not as naive as the millennials are, like the Zoomers. They're a bit more clever. They're a bit more traditional, a bit more, I don't want to say counterculture necessarily, because the culture currently as it is not really a great culture. It's a little bit erring on the degenerate side, and I think that they're edgy, but they're not gross, kind of like all the things that we discussed. It's bordering on the sick and profane and unnecessarily gauche, really. So I do have hope. There's definitely hope, so be part of that hope. Oh my god, I sound like an Obama campaign. Hope. Anyway, ultimately, the take-home message is that we need to support each other, we need to build the community, but we need to mobilize. So start with your local community, and if you have the time, the money, the energy, then yeah, branch out. We should definitely do meetups. We should definitely get together, whether it's in one country or another, or one city or another. It's really important that we realize that there are actual people on the other end of these computers, and that they're going to be the ones voting for certain policies, making certain economic decisions that affect other people. All of these things and ideas that we talk about, they have ramifications. And if we take the right steps and we take the right action, then we can actually do something. We shouldn't just sit around complaining and waiting for the end. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be good custodians and to occupy until the time comes. If you subscribe to that, if you don't, nevertheless, we all want to live in a nice, happy place. And the people who are taking control of the narrative right now are certainly not going to let that go without a fight. So get some courage, get a spine. Don't be afraid to flip a table as Jesus would. So, and I don't mean that in a, don't instigate violence, but don't be afraid to defend yourself, and don't be afraid to speak. Don't censor yourself. Don't make their job easier for them, right? As I like to say, the world is going to hate you, so you don't hate you. You be your own friend and reach out to other friends, because although the individual is important, we are actually stronger as a group, and that is one thing that the left has really gotten a good hold on, is you are stronger as a group. We do achieve much more together, and no person is purely an individual. We are all part of some group or another, so we need to remember that. And we need to really make sure that the community is strong, healthy, and there is no infighting, and so that we can actually achieve something. So I hope that you find that inspirational and motivating. And like I said, support what you like or it goes away, like Owen said. It's pretty obvious. So take that message, run with it. Don't be afraid. Be courageous, be bold, do what is right, do what is good, and hopefully it will all work out for the best. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this content. I'll definitely be looking for more people to have on the show, but in the meanwhile, I'll be putting out some more videos shortly. And like I said, leave a message or a comment and tell me what you liked, what you didn't like, what you'd like to see more of. And of course, you know the drill. Like, subscribe, share, all the rest of it. And I will see you guys very soon.